So I have a book, Countless Cinemas, and it's for sale for $10. I always feel so mercenary when I say anything like that, but it has to be said. I'm going to read some new work mixed in with some work from here. I'll try not to flip around too much between new and old, but here we go. There's a few Japanese references in here. I lived in Japan for a year. Nagoya is the third largest city in Japan. It's in central Japan. And Nihonjin is Japanese for Japanese. This is dedicated to my editor, who died 2 years ago, Larry Fagan. Write with the heart, cut with the head. I'd rather buy black shoe polish than finish this poem. I'd rather be alone in Salinas at the Holiday Inn. I'd rather be $50 short the bar tab, Golden State beating up on Houston again. To put these chicken shit words of mine out of their misery, try as I might, I can't. I'd rather be entering the John in Nagoya's Jazz Inn Lovely, catching my Nihonjin girlfriend screwing some pint-sized West Side Story Yakuza guy. Or back at Pleasant Valley State Prison, cavorting verbally with my convict class, half chuckling over Picasso's Blue Period paintings done in honor of his spurred best friend's suicide. How Picasso turned around and moved the femme fatale in. So much for my middling little canvas worthwhile animal end. Or back at the Lompoc Penitentiary, where my English comp medium security guys offered stamps and ramen for my vest. $62 an hour. I was living it. Fat chance my work could be better than this. Or rather be back in Athens with you, illumined as the Acropolis under a chunk of waxing moon, Odysseus in the Aegean, Circe and Penelope, this sparrow squat I call my poem. I'd rather be north of Cayucas at Brad and Mike's, their deck at the Abalone farm, Jupiter, the calm Pacific, its moonbeams running clapperboard. As John O'Hara said, poetry isn't everything, though I can't agree, I can't quit. I'd rather be as Subway lost and found, as we were in Rome, imbibing near the Spanish embassy. Nothing word-like can touch the life we live. Such poetical alchemy. I've always wished I could paint. So I'm going to read two poems to two visual artists. Man Ray wasn't technically a painter, but who am I reading next? De Kooning definitely was. The Man Ray story. And there's a little epigram. To create is divine, to reproduce human. Lips were a flag for bodies. Many people flew at once. California was a beautiful prison. Movement and sexual tension. I'm sure it's the same way now. I was of my time, simple. If you explain the woman crossing the street, I'll explain the object of myself. You don't need to clap, but thanks. This is called Daylight Savings Time, De Kooning, and another little epigram. Art never seems to make me peaceful or pure. I always seem to be wrapped in the melodrama of vulgarity. That's De Kooning. And this is in, let me see if I remember, 2 parts. 1. The clock says it's 9 o'clock, but it's really 8 o'clock if it's fall. It's very difficult for a painter to be free of the material. I rip open the salami in fear of someone waking up. Just as I reach the desk, I have to take a piss. It's very difficult for a painter to be free of the material. A frozen glimpse, Swiss cheese, a fig. Not so much this particular glimpse, but the emotion of it. That's the hardest thing. Not to reason, but to be a rock somewhere. The clock says it's 9 o'clock, but it's really 8 o'clock if it's fall. 2. I'm a house painter who gets very excited every once in a while. 4 bottles, the color of sunrise, windows with a little green. One thing about space, it just keeps going. When you want to cross a street in busy traffic, you have to fill it up very fast. An innocence about nature is needed if you want to break up space. When I'm out on the beam a little, when I'm slipping, I say, this is very interesting. When I'm falling, I'm doing all right. It's really a wonderful sensation to slip into this glimpse. When I'm standing upright, I'm stiff. I want to grasp the abstract, and that's really the most difficult thing. Okay, now we're going to get a little more visceral. And this is called How We Got You, and it's dedicated to my son Tom. And he wasn't even reluctant when he approved it. So, How We Got You. African doodad shop on Hollywood Boulevard, living on Cherokee at the time. We weren't fucking much, too bad, we both liked to, but you know how marriage is. We were in therapy. A blonde friend of hers who had this thing about the brothers and always had great weed suggested this therapist. I had 3 teaching jobs, your mom full-time captioned, USC, grad school, only in our 30s. I guess we were the shit. I'd remembered an African art class I took at UC Santa Barbara before I dropped out after a quarter of the IV bit. Robert Campbell, Mr. Foremost World Expert. The slides were fantastic. I'd just trip. We wanted a baby. Use it or lose it, the Jewish therapist said. The basement room was her office in Lillian Gish's old Hollywood Hills homestead. When I saw the wooden Fante fertility doll, I bought it for $8, though I knew it had been mass-produced. Your mom thought it was buck-toothed, a forlorn, butt-ugly thing. Still, for 2 months, I snuck it under her pillow. Just like the clerk, Mr. Prince, had said. It works? I asked. He grinned. Yeah, man, if the boat of you believe. The boat of us. I liked that. I knew that the boat of us was into this. I read somewhere that men's penises snap, often. I was on top of your mom on the floor of our apartment. I came hard. My member cracked a bit. She always cried when she came before laughing. We both knew you'd been had. This next one is called Kites. And it always gets me. I mean, I'm very careful about paper clipping every poem and 1 through 10 or whatever. And there's always one that I have to search for. But I found it. Kites. I remember flying kites as a kid, 7 years old, the huge field, Woodside High School. Mom didn't mind. Maybe didn't know. I went alone. I remember when my best friend's dad died eating peanut butter on saltine crackers. I want to say he deserved it because he always yelled at Jimmy, but I don't know. He was just a fatso in a flannel shirt, younger than I am now. My other best friend in second grade, Jerry, had an alcoholic dad. Jerry made us rum chocolate milkshakes. I didn't get sick, but I took off my clothes. When my wife gives our cats catnip and starts laughing, I think that's what Jerry's dad did to us. He thought I was funny, staggering about, singing Frere Jacques in my underwear. Later, Jerry and I were crawling around in the rafters of an abandoned house. There was a pile of comic books and Playboys up there. I was sitting on the trap door reading when it fell through. It collapsed my lung. I couldn't breathe and had to go to the emergency room. We didn't hang out much after that. He went to a foster home when he was 11 or something, 6th grade, I think. I ran into his sister, who was Miss San Mateo County, at a tennis tournament. She looked like one of the girls from the Brady Bunch. She was being honored at a Giants game at Candlestick. Jerry had gotten into heroin. Jerry and I used to hang out in a big old burnout eucalyptus stump. He liked to set fire to his sister's clothes. I'd go there alone after his family moved. What I liked to do was to get my kite real high, let all the string out, let it go, and then chase it right through people's yards. If someone stopped me, I'd say, "The string got cut. Can we help you find it?" No. I think I'm becoming sort of a de facto Buddhist, and I'm trying to weave what I'm reading and what I'm practicing into my poetry, and my poetry won't let it in. So I just work on it, but this is one of those attempts. It's a new poem. And it's called Mind on His Sleeve, and it's sort of a takeoff on the title of Wearing Your Heart on Your Sleeve. When a fireproof garment, blotched by various stains, is placed in fire, the stains are burned, but the garment is not. In the same way, the mind of clear light is stained by desire. Such stains are burned by the fire of wisdom, but the clear light is not. So I have all sorts of political feelings about what's going on now, and I could fill the house with them. And I don't even want to mention his name in a poem, so I won't. But I'm going to read you a few more sort of politically inclined poems. I would have taken a cleaver, Gaza Strip, November 1995. I asked the mother of a young man who'd blown himself up what she would have done if she'd known what her son was planning to do. I would have taken a cleaver, cut open my heart, and stuffed him deep inside, she said. Then I would have sewn it up tight to keep him safe. I really like writing persona poems. I don't write nearly enough. I always admired the poet A.I. and her work. And this is a persona poem through the voice of an African-American mother whose son was killed in a drive-by. It's called No End, and this is May's voice. in South Central LA. No end. My body felt the same weakness. Everything. Just like yesterday. Only this was a year ago. Shot in the head, my Devon, as he drove down a residential street. He'd hold a hand to his mouth when he laughed to cover that crooked tooth. He'd been so chubby as a child, baseball cards, comic books, collecting as soon as he could read. As a teenager, he seemed to grow tall, lanky overnight. Hairstyled, shirts matching his shoes, always groomed, his friends calling him pretty boy. He was shy, always hanging back, letting all the others hold court. When he went to a club with his friends, he'd lounge along the wall, refuse to dance. He was going to City College then, wanted to be a police officer, he said. I'd just bought him the white Monte Carlo. He was so proud of those new rims. The night he was shot, he was driving to his girlfriend's, crashed into the Thomas's garage. The neighbors heard him try to restart the car. That's where he died, they said. This is called Declarative Parts of Speech. The full title is Declarative Parts of Speech, Poetic Americana Bill of Rights. Freedom to coronate each and every pauper noun a proper noun. Freedom to coronate each and any paragraph blundering in wunderkind stanzas of disunified thought. Freedom to endow articles with prepositional knighthood, bestow prepositions ultimate articledom. Freedom to singularize plurals and misquotate all reported speech. Freedom to conjunctivate all action words, verb all the advertised singularities, plurally, to bed. Freedom to kind, color, number any objects, prepositional resistance, transfusion, interjection, like. Freedom to facet all high syntax into unwieldy weddings ring. This is called Homeless in Hollywood. When I was a freshman at the University of Oregon, my roommate and I wanted to see if we could hitchhike down to Mexico and back before the end of spring break. So, and we did. So this is sort of an account of that. And I wrote it when I was living in Hollywood, so it sort of starts in Hollywood, and then it's a flashback to this hitchhiking trip. It's called Homeless in Hollywood to Todd. Torn cloud tired is the seaman sky, between which clotheslines burn his women in blurs of egg-beater palm. His women who testify with lowered snout, clicking paw, and sharpened frond, who testify every morning will bring more night. Where your birds of paradise, his women exclaim. Your Christmas cacti, they whisper. Your spindly pine. As astride a white enamel whirlpool gate, he wavers, hops, before noting unlocked, washes his socks, dries them on the fence after most tenants have left for work, uncorks himself, then studies his shirt. Mr. No-Say, a gardener with his own pickup truck, says nothing as later he knows the raccoon man will cull what he can from dumpster piles and alley bins just to make the ivy carpet and stunted jacaranda wall around his Hollywood freeway on-ramp abode blocks away more inviting. Remember just that sliver 19 free, vagabond, wannabe. Remember dragging our backpacks up that overpass slope in 73, I-5 to Flagstaff, 8:30 p.m. or so. Only spot where a long hair hitching through Kingman might be safe. I'd let you stay at my place, but, said the Pinto man, after a few pipe hits apiece, stop, and Saturday night pickups, beer bottles exploding like grenades, how we'd scampered up, fear of rolling off the shelf, down loud cement to a Ford Ranchero, death having kept me awake. Spring had ripped its way through the land like a mountain range from Tucson to Eugene, with the hobo terrier who'd climb chain link fences on command, or careening on reds with blue hibiscus girls, the hot station wagon ride, driving midnight to Mount Shasta, dawn to Dunsmuir and back. Divorcees, who knew? Obzona's 17, whining as we shot through sand cloud banks, temperature drop of true plateau. Out of Phoenix, a Navajo pickup, snow on the ground, stiff, thin blankets, more weed behind the cab. Reminds me of America, where the beef jerky man, Needles was it, offered us a hitch in his borax mine, just 40 miles from town. Quick ink of another storm. 4 shotguns on the rack. As such, no, we'd said. Later again, no. Between boxcars to that worse than T-bird wine on abandoned Beaumont tracks. Scored by shafts of light, how road moments cut. Shrank tiny towns, even smaller. How 45 years ago to abandon one's skin, fast talk could pay as it did for our fearlessness. Reminds me of a country once where trust was no sin. 45 years ago, the homeless guy having left, such is spring, we couldn't have traveled much further. So 2 more. Both shortish. This is a new one. I've been working on it for 25 years, and it's still not there. I say it's a new one. It's just like a new pain in the ass, but, you know. Okay, it's called Solitude's Flag, 4 Water Stories. And it's in 4 parts, of course. 1, Solitude's Flag, a fat puffin off Nova Scotia. Its yellow dot T-shirt, hardly suspect. Its flight, another oblong spitball of ocean white intent. 2, ankle sand, crawdad halyard, water skeeters in sporadic wind, a pussy willow scooped of granite. Solitude's flags become a finch. 3, where the Green River meets the Colorado, a pictograph warrior, ochre arrowheads, large as aircraft carrier deer trails, haloing his head. Deep canyon damsel flies, craped like myrtle. Solitude's gone to bed. 4, a lake which shrinks as one's body grows older. Solitude listens to itself, becoming less. And this is my last poem. It's called Summer Eve South of Stockton. And how do I explain this? I don't know. I mean, I've been working in corrections and at juvenile health detention centers and mental health facilities on and off for the last 29 years. And I was also a single parent, raising my son. I had full legal and physical custody of him. And I couldn't always find sitters, so I'd often have to take him into juvenile detention facilities and into East LA or Southeast San Diego or East Oakland or, wherever I was going. It was really sort of joyous because oftentimes I'd be working with kids 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids who were dads. And they would see me here, with my son, and he'd like say, "Dad, where are the crayons? Don't you guys have any crayons?" And, they'd crack up, and, I'd put him on stage for a little bit. But anyway, I wrote this on a California road map as I was driving back from Stockton after working with what they call SVPs, sexually violent predators, who are kids. And I was coming back with my son, and this is the poem I wrote. Summer Eve, south of Stockton. 100 well-behaved right-lane trucks, fast lane I-5, 80-mile-per-hour twilight, toasting the minds of bugs. Phone pole hawk, beak tucked, crop duster, Christmas time green, envying the guy whose first kiss must have just taken hold in rich rye of such an instant just past. Ah, the heat of it. We're no more than bread. Back seat, my son, you'd think asleep on the upholstery of heaven. For an instant so righteous, I'm entrusted with so much. Nights just a nest. My job's just to drive for an instant so righteous. Thank you.